right, yeah, so it's on to us, and we'll do quick introductions. My name is Kapehe. You can call me Cap for short. I do developer relations at Sanity.io, the whole name, at Sanity.
Sanity.io, yeah. I'm Knut. I also do developer relations at Sanity.io.
Yeah, so we have two sections coming up. We have one with Espen and Marius and another with Cody and Snorre later on. I'll let you, Knut, explain the first one, I guess.
Sure. So yeah, of course, there's a lot of work behind Sanity Studio V3, and we're so lucky to speak to like two of the many people who have thought a lot about designing APIs and how this all should work for well over a year. And yeah, we had to record them because there was kind of like a 15-hour time difference between Cap and Aspen. But hopefully it will be insightful and enjoyable interview, or I know it will be because I was there. And after we will take questions from you all in the chat and have Cody and Snorre be here for a live session. So I'm looking forward to that. Should we just roll the interview?
Yeah, I'm ready. All right, so V3 has been a huge team effort, but there are two people who have done a lot of the thinking behind it. Espen, Marius, welcome. I'll let each of you introduce yourself. Espen?
Hi, I'm Espen. I'm the principal engineer on the studio team, and I've been working on V3 for quite a while now, so it's amazing to see it finally being released.
Right on. And Marius?
Yes, hello, I'm Marius. I'm a principal product designer at Sanity, and I've also been working with V3 for a while. Really excited.
Right on. Well, thank you so much for doing all this with us. There are a lot of questions that we're going to go through. We're really excited to hear from the two of you. So,
yeah, and like before diving into kind of like all the V3 stuff, I think we need some backstory because Sanity Studio has always like obviously been out for a while. I think the first public version was in late 2017, and Espen, you were there from the start. Like, when did this development of Sanity Studio such start actually?
Good question. It actually started before me. There were some very, very early prototypes built for a few specific customers when Sanity was just like a means to an end, like a CMS for a specific customer, I guess you could say. But the re-envisioning into what you would today call the Sanity Studio started in 2016. So it's been a while, yeah.
And what were kind of like some of the ambitions when you kind of like started to make this as like a product that other people should use?
Yeah, it's one of those things where you get to build the thing that you really want to use yourself, which is always a good thing. So the ambition was to have a very easy way to get started on new projects and to like easily define a content model, scaffold out all of the things that you need, like an API, just a hosted database somewhere, and have everything be collaborative, real time, be able to like audit and figure out who's actually editing all this content, all of those things that you sometimes don't have time to implement if you do it yourself. But with Sanity, just being able to get that out of the box. And on top of that, being able to then customize that so you're not stuck at that sort of what you got initially is where you'll be left, but you can always like keep building solutions to specific problems that you have, or if you want to improve like a little portion of the user interface, you can do that with tools that you're already familiar with.
There has been a lot going on behind the scenes, and I know when you first started planning V3 and thinking about it, there were important challenges that you knew that you'd face. What were some of those that you had to start thinking about at the beginning? Either one of you.
Yeah. So one important challenge was the parts system that we had before. So that was a custom-made sort of dependency injection and plugin system, all in one thing. So and that plugin or that part system was implemented in Webpack. So we were quite tied to Webpack, and we wanted to sort of leverage new tools, and also a lot of people wanted to use like slight variations of our configuration. So they wanted like custom post CSS plugins, or I don't remember. Like, but if you need like a web worker or something like that, it was really hard to combine that with the studio, for example.
But like, it wasn't only web. Like, didn't we get stuck in a Webpack version or something?
Yeah, it was very very locked to Webpack 3. It used a lot of hacks to make this work. It wasn't an easy task. We thought it would be more important than it was to be able to solve these challenges that we set out to solve initially. Like, if we would be able to throw away a bunch of like unused code by having these sort of import level plugin system, because then if a part that was declared wasn't ever used, then we automatically knew that we could get rid of all that code. And back then in 2016, tree shaking wasn't like a very established practice, and so we worked very hard to make that work with Webpack. Unfortunately, that also meant that we when they changed from version 3 to version 4, things got a lot more difficult, and we also had to integrate with other tooling like post CSS and anything that where we wanted our sort of part system to work that required special integrations. So we're quite eager to get rid of that and make sure that going forward we wouldn't be locked to any specific technology choice, so that going forward is just following the best practices of the ecosystem, and whatever new thing comes out, it should be pretty easy to adapt Sanity to work with it.
Yeah, and one thing that comes to mind also is shared content, which is sort of a feature that we want to make sort of better over time in the studio. We already started. You can already like have content from different data sets into one studio, but we would like it in the future to be easier to manage content across data sets. And then we needed to sort of have better dependency injection, because the part system is essentially global instances. So you have one client and you can only talk to one data set, but we needed to somehow change that. So we had to sort of do some changes in the part system or do something else to make that happen. Yeah.
And I know the question on every developer's mind, breaking changes. Breaking changes, did you know that there were going to be some going into it? Did they just kind of pop up? Are there some important ones that you want to point out?
I think there's no doubt that this is going to be the biggest breaking change that we've ever done to the studio. We went from version 0 to version 2 basically without any breaking changes, just minor things. But this one, we have to sort of do a big lift in order to get to the state that we want it to be and be this modern way of thinking. And with that comes, unfortunately, a few breaking changes. But for the most part, I would say that things like things that people usually relate to, like the schemas and how those are defined, it's basically the same as they've always been. We've just made it easier now with a few TypeScript helpers to ensure that you have correct schemas. And there's also things like custom input components has new APIs, but it means that you can usually get rid of 90% of your custom code. It's just a whole lot easier to build on it. So there's good rationale for all of these things. As Marius says, there's no longer a global client in the studio, but that means that you can use like multiple different data sets and projects potentially within the studio at the same time, and make sure that whenever you act as a client to do something, you can get the one that's scoped to the correct project. So I think it's definitely worth it, and we've migrated a few customer studios even. that just to make sure that it wasn't too painful, and that we haven't forgotten some very forgotten anything that's very hard to migrate. So I think we're pretty confident that the migration isn't going to be super painful for people.
That's cool that you already have a customer that you all worked with to like see that migration to V3 and see the changes, and so you could kind of see the pain points that happened for other people. That's awesome.
Yeah. So I think we have done breaking changes, and we have been very mindful about sort of the problems of doing breaking changes. But then we have tried to do it in sort of the best possible way. So we have changed what we have had to change to make sort of the future possible, future of the studio. And we haven't changed just for the sake of change. We have changed what sort of improves VX developer experience, and sort of what is necessary to sort of pull the studio into the future. So yeah, and as you said, that's been validated with actual users that the migration sort of makes sense, and that they have the information they need.
I think it's interesting to think about, because like we are talking about breaking changes now, because obviously a lot of people are using Sanity Studio to kind of like make their stuff work and solve problems at work and ship stuff to people on the web. So it's kind of like a tool, and if you're dependent on a tool, it's kind of like isn't great when you have to like change something suddenly. But how is it to think about that when you are making new APIs and so on? That like, one, you probably want to make something that can last for a while, that you don't have to change or break, right? And you're making something that a lot of people are supposed to understand and maybe even take delight in. Like, is it intimidating?
Yes.
Yeah, it's
very
definitely intimidating. It's
how
never easy
do
to find the
you...
right balance, I think.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where you can either go completely for things that feel like magic, things that just work, but they can be harder to understand, like what is actually going on behind the scenes, and if that magic doesn't solve what I want it to do, what does that mean for how I'm going to be able to solve this question? And then the other end of it is making it super explicit and have a lot of have it be very like open-ended, but that leaves a lot of room for errors sometimes. With our previous implementation of custom input components, it was very low level. You have to understand a lot of different concepts. So it was hard to get right in a lot of ways. But I think the real like power of developer experience and thinking about that is to find the middle ground where you're able to do everything that you want, but we make it easy to do the things that you want to do in 90% of the cases, if that makes sense. So for most cases, it'll just be super easy, and if it's not, then there's at least a path forward that you can take, and you can read up on the concepts that you need to understand for building the more complex use cases.
Yeah, custom inputs is what sort of comes to mind as well for me. And I remember, Espen, you and me talking about this for a very long time, that we wish it was easier and sort of more composable, this custom input API. So for example, if you just want to customize a simple string input, it's like the most basic input in the studio, you would have to know about all these other concepts, and we really wanted you to not have to worry about all these other sort of built-in features that come with custom inputs, like presence and validation and all those things. You shouldn't worry about that if you just need a simple input, and also future features. So if you're implementing a custom input, and then later we have a chat feature, for example, or comment feature, you shouldn't need to update your plugin to get support for that. So we we wanted, the new API to sort of account for all these scenarios. And now, I think the result is quite good. The sort of, if you just want a basic input in Sanity, it's very few lines of code. But then at the same time, you can take control as you need it and build something much more advanced. And all the building blocks are sort of there for you if you want to do that. And I should also mention that during this time we have tested the ideas for the new APIs internally, and the reception has always been very positive. I mean, and that this is the sort of scary part, that people really loved the schema and the form generation, the form builder in Studio version 2. So we're changing something that people really love to use. But I think we managed to improve a lot of things.
I wish I counted the amount of head exploding emojis used last year. It's probably like 1,368 or something. I think.
Around there.
Yeah.
Build on that a little bit. It's also because I really want to address the breaking change in the future kind of aspect of this, which is we've done all of these changes that we felt was absolutely necessary to get to where we are. Things that it is basically impossible not to break. Things like the part system. There's no easy migration path from what we had to where we needed to be. But I think we're in a really good place now where we're able to provide these future compatible APIs, so that even if we are doing improvements to these APIs, like the APIs aren't perfect at the moment. We still have ideas for things that could be even simpler, but we're at this point where I think we're able to provide a forwards compatible API, so we can keep improving these things in a way that isn't backwards incompatible. So hopefully that will make the migration to newer versions even easier going forward.
Like, what was an example of renaming that you had to do or chose to do?
We used to have the development server be Sanity start, the CLI command, but all the other frameworks basically are using dev. So like npm run dev and more specifically like next dev or Gatsby dev or remix dev. So we want to align with that too. It's a slight change, of course, but I think people get used to it a lot faster. So. Yeah, and it's a lot more discoverable too, I would say now, with our improved TypeScript support. Discovering things like initial value is one of those things where you previously would probably Google it or go to the documentation, but now you can usually just like command space and type in value, because you're looking for initial value or default value or whatever it is, and then you see it there and you get a description for what it does, and it's just so much more discoverable in that way. So really happy with the changes that we've done there and the amount of TypeScript coverage we have now.
I think I heard another piece of feedback when it comes to kind of like the new developer tooling, which is like based on Vite and I guess ES build and so on. That like when I had done the code change, it was like it reloaded so fast that I had to kind of like they kind of like didn't notice it almost. And I think that is also funny. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's a sort of bug or a feature.
Yeah,
as you don't notice, then yeah. But
I think it was in plugin development or something. Yeah,
exactly. It's just something you should take for granted, that the feedback loop is short when you're developing the studio.
Yeah, and I mean we're standing on the shoulders of what other people have built already here. So it's been amazing to be able to upgrade to Vite and utilize all of the amazing things that they've provided us with. But it's also amazing to now know that you can use whatever technology you want. So if you want to put Sanity inside of an XJS app, or you want to use it inside of Gatsby, or you want to use it inside of a parcel app, like whatever you want, Sanity can go there, because it's not tied to a specific bundler or solution like that, that's a real power, I would say, with V3, and it's been great to be able to deliver on.
So I think one of the most daunting things for a lot of people is the TypeScript stuff. Having it change over to that and having it having the studio be TypeScript. I mean, I guess you can still pick to choose not to do TypeScript, but what were the benefits of doing TypeScript, and are you happy with it? Like, are you happy with how it all turned out? And let's talk about TypeScript.
Yeah, sure. So TypeScript, we had some degree of TypeScript coverage before, and we were debating in the beginning of this project whether we should first just convert everything to TypeScript, because TypeScript makes it so much sort of safer and faster to refactor things. So when you have TypeScript, you almost don't have to open the dev server and test it. You just, if it compiles, then you sort of know it works. So it has helped us a lot internally. And in the end, I think we have converted basically everything to TypeScript. I guess there's a couple of files, some config files maybe, that are still JavaScript. I don't actually know, but yeah. No, but it's true that you don't have to use TypeScript with Studio. It's the frame or the library. All the libraries that we provide, they're TypeScript. But you, as a consumer and as a sort of Studio developer, you don't have to use it. But you can still leverage some of the good parts. So you will get sort of autocomplete and sort of in editor documentation and all these things. So that's a really great aspect of it. But I guess we generally recommend to use TypeScript. It is there's a learning curve, obviously, if you haven't used it before, but once you get over that, it really boosts your work and make it more fun. So yeah.
Yeah, and it's really easy to migrate to as well. You can do it gradually, I would say. You can rename a file to .ts and just see, usually works out of the box, and then you can start adding some types, and then just gradually go like file by file. So it's not the worst migration, I would say. You don't have to do like an everything or nothing approach. So having the ability to control the strictness levels is it's a big bonus, I would say.
Yeah. And I guess like most things in the studio also have like comes with types now, so you can like import them and reuse them or expand on them if you need to, which is also nice.
Yes. Yeah, we actually have a check that we run when we build the studio that makes sure that all the things that are required to do customizations are exported. So all the types and all the interfaces should be exported, and they're also tagged with release tags like alpha and beta and public. So before, we would have internals just exported by our packages, and we would just say, please don't use the internals unless you really know what you're doing. But now we export all the tools and also all the sort of unstable APIs. So you can use them, but you will see that these are not stable. So please be mindful of that. So yeah, so we basically marked the pieces of the APIs that might change, but then if they're labeled with public, then you know that they will not change until the next major version, maybe.
We're also making sure that some of the ecosystem tooling is more up to date with TypeScript. So we have portable text types as a separate package now, and we will make sure to, going forward, that we do the same with all of our, like, we don't have all that many data structures that are specific to Sanity, but there are a few. Well, I guess portable text isn't strictly specific to Sanity either, but the ones that we do have, like image types and assets, things like that we provide like easy to use types for that in any context. So TypeScript is important for us, and we want to make sure that in the future it's going to be really easy to consume these things, no matter which, if you're using it in a front end or inside of the studio or wherever you are.
When you get into TypeScript and when you get into the studio, and if you're new to both of those things, it can be very scary. And as a beginner or as someone that's just getting started just with Sanity, like they don't necessarily have to be a beginner in tech, but it is that learning curve with TypeScript. And if you take that little bit of extra effort to learn it, it will pay off in the long run. And so I like what you said, Marius, when it's like there's that learning curve, but it will turn out in the end. It will make sense, and it can do a lot. But yeah, it's important to remember that extra work at the beginning there is a light at the end.
Exactly.
So moving to kind of like these I guess kind of like ecosystem standards, both with like the developer tooling, and how the Sanity Studios ship now. It's like now it ships as just one dependency, right? Like the Sanity dependency on npm. This also opened for a new, I guess, venue of use. We call it Embeddable Studio. Cap made a pretty cool tutorial on it. Tell us more about that. What is that all about, Espen?
It is this idea that we had basically when we looked at the studio and in V2, and then we said, let's get rid of all the parts or anything that prevents us from using this in any bundler context. Like what opens up there as a possibility is just like immediately what you're left with is just a React component that renders a studio, right? Because the entire studio is just built in React. So in what we ended up with is like this idea where we can build Sanity in a way that makes it embeddable into other contexts. And like the first iteration that we're seeing of this now, as Cap has already demonstrated, and I'm sure we have some demos of this out already, is embedding sort of the studio inside of a Next.js app or a Remix app or a Gatsby app on like a route. So you go to like yoursite.com/studio, and there it is. That's your Sanity Studio. It doesn't require a different build tool. It doesn't require like a separate build at all. It's just part of your existing app. And that's really powerful because you can then more easily leverage components from your website inside the studio or vice versa. And you can reuse the same types. If you've defined like TypeScript types, things like that is just a lot easier. There's a lot of overlap there. And that's the first part of it. So I think what we're delivering right now is what we need to deliver. Like we've got so much potential, but we've already got so much value. So we want to get that value out to our users, and then we want to keep building on it. So in the future, we could see a future where you can take parts of the studio. So I want to use like a subset of fields, not the part system, just I want to use these like 3 fields and then be able to edit them inside of your existing website, for instance. Or I want to be able to have a button that says edit on my website, and then that just pulls out like a sidebar and shows the editor and all the connected content that is on the page and how they relate to each other. There's so many things like that that is a possibility to do, and not theoretically complicated either, because it's just React, it's just JavaScript. And I think that's the sort of really cool thing about Sanity, is that you can the ability to break these things down a little bit and use it makes it more into like a content management framework almost, rather than like an app that it used to be. So it's something that we're very excited about, and I think there's a lot of cool ideas from this. Marius has, I'm sure Marius could talk about this for hours because he's got some really cool prototypes that he's already shown. So
yeah, embeddable it's something that we have thought about a lot. For now, the only sort of ready-made approach is to embed the whole studio. But yeah, this is possible because we are bundling the studio as just a regular sort of JavaScript library now. So it comes bundled as ESM modules and also CommonJS modules, and there's nothing more fancy than that. It's just a standard sort of package JSON on NPM, and you can use it in any JavaScript application.
I would say that being able to ship actual ESM compatible stuff is a bit fancy from what I saw behind the scenes. It wasn't easy necessarily, but
it's really hard to get right. But yeah.
The studio has always been very customizable. That's not a new V3 thing, but I know things have been improved and changed with V3 with all that. So are there any fun things that you want to recommend to developers or people who are building with the new studio to customize in their new studios going forward?
I think one of the key things is the config things, because as you said, a lot of this has already been possible, so you've always been able to provide custom input components, for instance. But now you can, that's easier, of course, but it's kind of fun with the configurations because that has usually been a very static thing. It's been part of your build process. It's a JSON file that has these static properties. But now with the new approach in V3, it's just JavaScript, and you have these conditional properties on there, which gives you more context. So when you're defining which structure to show, the structure of the desk tool, instead of just having a static thing that everyone sees, you can now get access to the current user, and then you can see which roles that user has, and then you can provide specific structures for specific users, for instance. But you can also do things like load the structure from, theoretically at least, from a different location. You can have it hosted somewhere totally different and then load that in. Even schemas could theoretically be asynchronously loaded over the webs and injected. So there's a lot of really cool, super dynamic things that I'm not sure we see the limits of currently. It's going to be super fun to see what the weird things people come up with going forward. So that would be my number one thing that people should try and check out.
Yeah, yeah. I also think input components is the place to sort of go. I mean, I'm thinking of people who are new to Sanity, as you mentioned, Cap, that the TypeScript and the whole studio is a lot to sort of take in, and it takes a little time to sort of to get up to speed. But yeah, I think ideally start with schemas, build some schemas, and see how that sort of affects how the studio works, and have fun with that, and then start playing around with custom inputs, and you can have custom previews, and you can also have a much easier sort of custom arrays. This is getting a bit more advanced, but there are a lot of really nice building blocks to do that. For example, we have this standard array in the Sanity Studio opens in dialog, but in many use cases you would prefer to have your array inline edited, and that's totally possible with the new APIs. And I'm guessing we'll put out some examples of this, so it will be easier to understand and get started with. But yeah, that's I'm gonna have a lot of fun with that myself going forward. So yeah.
I want to answer your question too, Cap. A new kind of neat API is studio components. So we expose some of kind of the building blocks of the kind of the studio app. So you can actually if you want a banner on top of it, because why not? That's not kind of hard to do. But where I would start is maybe replacing the logo, because that used to be a bit of a bit of work, and now it's just super easy to just replace it. As Espen said, we can even do it conditionally on like a user or environment. So if you want to like signal that this is a staging studio, you can do stuff like that, which is super nice. So we're.
Can I answer it too?
Oh yeah, sure.
Might as well go around. The thing that was the most magic to me was embedding it into a Next.js app. I know we talked about how I've already done that and I have a talk on it, but there's not a lot of code that goes into it. So I think seeing that magic and like doing it yourself is really fun to see. And so yeah, that's my thing.
I think this has touched all the teams at Sanity, like from obviously the product teams and so on to support, solution engineering, sales even, right? So yeah, and the dev team has been writing a lot of documentation on it and so on. So we're pretty stoked about getting that out the door as well. And of course, this is just the start of Studio V3. So yeah, I'm super stoked to see where this goes. And I guess like we will get some insight into that in the next segment with Cody and Snorre. So thanks so much for giving us a bit of like behind the scenes of this, Espen and Marius.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And
all
we're
right,
back live. Yeah,
we're back live.
You know that because I have a beanie on. This is the official swag. It's not the unofficial swag. If you want the unofficial swag, that is becoming the official swag or not, maybe you go to swag.sanity.io, and this just in, I think we already have over 1K in sales. People must be buying this super fancy windbreaker that Cody made.
Yeah. I kind of want that hat. That hat came up in my list, and I was thinking about it. I'm like, I don't want the t-shirt. I want that hat.
I want everything. I want everything. Like the draped in Sanity stuff, right?
Yeah.
I'm already kind of draped in Sanity stuff. All right. We have a lot of questions from the chat and from the community, and we also want to talk more about V3 and look at some like what are the new things and so on. So, Cap, do we have some guests?
Yes, we do. So this next section is live. So all the questions that you have been asking or all the questions that you are going to ask will be answered by Cody and Snorre. And let's bring them on stage. Hi, both of you.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
That windbreaker is just the worst thing I've ever made, probably.
Everyone loves
it. Was a joke. It was a joke.
So I'll let each of you introduce your own selves. So Cody, if you'd like to go first.
Sure. I'm Cody. I'm on the ecosystem team. And my favorite thing with V3 has been mentioned a lot during this product day is the embeddability. Let me share my screen. Show it real quick here.
Let's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so this here is the new Vercel starter we launched. It's running inside of a Next 13 Vercel deploy thingy. So it's using the new app directory. And here we have Hydrogen, also deployed to Vercel, but using something called the Edge runtime. So these two are really radically different systems, but you use them exactly the same. And moving forward, this whole embeddability thing can be taken so much further. So this is just a very brief look at how you can theme the entire studio. This is just the Next app wrapping a studio that you see right here. This is wrapping this, and then you can do all these other crazy stuff. And this is just one aspect of this theming. But embeddability can be used to do pretty much anything you can dream up where you need the studio to be in like a component. So I'm so excited for next year and the stuff we can build on top of this. So that's my favorite thing.
Nice. Snorra?
I like how the studio matches your room, by the way, Cody.
You should match theater with the actual lighting.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
next version.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, so I'm Snorra. I'm also on the ecosystem team. Just try to keep up with Cody on an everyday basis, and I love it. I guess my favorite feature, I mean, I come from more of an enterprise background, so to me, V3 represents like a paradigm shift on how you can customize the studio as a whole to make, the greatest editorial experience ever. And I mean, V2 is such an awesome product in its own right, but you had to jump through some hoops if you really wanted to go there. But now with the new APIs, I mean, it's so ridiculously easy to just get some flair on your components, some banners, as was mentioned, just a little bit of panache to make it, guide your editors to do the right thing. I think that's just beautiful.
Right on. Well, thank you for joining us live. And so we wanted to do like a quick little like rapid fire. I mean, you already said your favorite feature, but favorite features. And so we'll do 1 minute of your favorite, just like name off all the V3 things that are coming or have arrived. Who wants to go first? It's rapid fire, and it's just
I'll continue where I left off because it goes. I sort of love the idea where you can do a lot of stuff, like data driven. So you can put more stuff in your schemas in the studio and just make that change the way the studio behaves. And now with the new component APIs, because they compose, so you can make all these tiny little features, and you just have a little bit of an option, an opt-in in your schemas. You have an option that add a warning banner or a API integration or some sort of PDAS, some sort of just animations that make it look cool. You can just have that opt-in wherever you need it in your schema, and just having the ability to do that with this self-composable API, because you can have multiple things that implement the input component and they delegate. So you get this building blocks that just magically works as you start using them. And I think that API has turned out to be just a gem.
Right on.
Yeah, totally. And for me, other than embeddability and theming, I really enjoy working with the new components APIs. The way you can just compose them, and it doesn't really matter what order you put them in, and it's just so easy to extend the interface and customize it, as well as the workspaces feature is so nice. It's so useful.
Can we take just a little bit of a moment? I know you talked at length on TypeScript, but I'm a big TypeScript fan. And I mean, let's just appreciate what TypeScript can do for you for a little second. Discoverability.
Is this because I use any all the time? Is that what you bring up?
No.
I also appreciate TypeScript. I know it might seem like I don't, but I do.
We have to start somewhere, right?
Yeah. But in my opinion, I mean, the fact that we added TypeScript, you can still start the studio with JavaScript only, but you see, your IDE will use the TypeScript definitions to infer and help with autocompletion. So just the fact that we have these defined helpers, as long as you type your schemas within, define type, define field, define array member, you will get IntelliSense and you will get more correct suggestions. And as we move forward, and we already started doing this for some of the plugins, you can have, we can augment the schema from the plugins. So I encourage everyone to just go add the code input and the color input, and you'll see that you'll get the correct options in your schema types as you install these plugins. So yeah, I love that stuff.
It must be said, like Snorra has worked a lot to make that work, and it didn't seem easy. But you made it.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, it's still not perfect, of course, but I mean, it's come a long way, and I really enjoy. There are some cool features in there that I really hope people enjoy.
Speaking of cool features, Cap, should we, like, there's been a lot of great talk today about what you can do with Sanity and with Studio V3. but what have you actually shipped? Should we bring up the blog post? How
Yes,
exciting
we
is it
have-
with the blog post after the swag store and stuff?
Yeah.
But yeah, we had to write a pretty lengthy blog post this time because it's kind of like over a year's worth of work. But let's see if we can bring it up. We have some assistants behind the screen who are they're looking for the blog post. It's lost. Where is the blog? All right,
Here it is.
Yeah,
here it is.
Yeah, so yeah, let's scroll and see if we can find some of the new features. So yeah, there's a high level thing. So already mentioned, there's a new studio customization framework. This is kind of like the new studio components, form components, all of that great stuff. Oh, there's new global search. Like Sanity Studio V3 ships with global search where you can filter by any field in all your kind of like content model, and you can chain filters and stuff. It's pretty powerful. That is kind of like included. Workspaces, we have looked at them. So that's basically an array of configs, and on the config can be different schemas. It can be like different projects, data sets, kind of whatever. So it's pretty infinitely powerful, I think. Embeddability, we had mentioned, like all the, since we like deprecated part system, we have to like rewrite all the APIs, and you can check them out on the new docs site or like the new docs. Oh yeah, the studio is only one dependency now. It's like npm install Sanity, right? And it's ESM compatible thanks to Kodi. That was not easy to like get in place. And there's new developer tooling with v3's. I'm losing my breath. Yeah, so much stuff. Yeah, the new plugin API and a fantastic tool called Plugin Kit that Snorri made that kind of like helps you scaffold a plugin, develop it. It deals with the sim linking between the studio and the plugin, and you can even kind of publish the plugin on npm, which you totally should. Which is a scary thing to publish on npm, but thanks to this plugin kit, it's not that scary, or still a bit scary, maybe. I don't know. What do you think, Sora? You have published a lot of packages lately.
I mean, you're just mentioning it there. Just ESM to start out. It's just hard to deal with, but we really tried to make it at least give you something to start off of and build on. But yeah, more to come also.
I feel like I'm kind of like just skimming the surface here because there's so much underneath here. Like there's a lot of like things in the config that have like a callback function now that brings you context with roles and the user, and it supports promises like the production URL, super tiny little thing in the studio. Can take a promise now, so you can kind of construct those preview URLs on the fly. Like so much of this. So yeah, I think you just have to kind of go over to sanity.io/docs and just read every page, because we had to update kind of around 100 articles for this release. It's huge. Ooh, yeah. Should we dive into questions?
We have so many.
Go for it.
Okay, I'll go first. So what is the biggest change to the developer experience for a typical project?
For a typical project, I would say the biggest change is the fact that there is no longer a Sanity JSON. There's now the Sanity config, TS or JS as you want, where it's now it's all code now. Everything is code. It's not JSON. That means that you can do a lot differently. So you can program before you can reason about them and abstract your configuration and everything.
Yeah, you can even use await instead of the config file, and I think that's pretty nuts.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, just the fact that we have one dependency now, that's actually it seems like a tiny thing, but it's actually quite nice. The fact that you can just even now, because before you actually you still should, I guess, use create Sanity to start. But I mean, you could start without Sanity and just add the Sanity dependency, and you're good to go.
Because that means that now in any project you can just do npm install Sanity and then you can get started. It's that easy.
I would say that's the biggest difference. Yeah, because I mean, you don't even need to use the new TypeScript helpers for the schemas. The schemas are more or less just the same, and I think for the most part, I mean, for smaller studios, I don't think the API surface is that different, to be honest. It should be very familiar. It's the same handles or levers. They just, you know, come as JavaScript instead of JSON now.
Yeah, and speaking of that, like if you want to upgrade from Studio V2, is there a link or something? Do you know?
You ask me?
Where can I find the info about this? Yeah. Where would you go, Snorre, if you were to upgrade from Studio V2?
I hope I can go just to Sanity.
The new docs. The new wonderful docs.
Yeah.
That your team has been writing.
Yeah, there's migration guides on the new docs. Go check out the new docs.
Yeah, and there's a very handy,
really
handy cheat sheet, right? That shows you a lot of the, you know, at the glance differences between, oh, you used to have badges. What do I do with those in the new version? Oh, here it is.
Exactly.
And it's a really nice overview.
And if you go, like, if you get stuck or the docs don't help you, you should just let us know on GitHub discussions or in our Slack community, and then we will amend the cheat sheet if there are some neat cheats we can add for sure.
I really like this question. This next one coming up. So, can we still use GraphQL or Grok? And is Grok still the recommended language to use?
Yes. You can use GraphQL. We love both. Grok is the favorite since it's lean, but yeah, GraphQL is not going anywhere. That's
perfect.
Yeah, and there's kind of like a similar question to this. Sorry, like any changes to the front end side, any changes with Grok? No. And the cool thing is you can actually, if you have like a Studio V2 in production, you can totally start a new Studio V3 and start kind of like the migration process in parallel, because they all connect to Content Lake, right? So that's pretty neat.
And another neat thing, now we have the Sanity CLI.js or TS file. That's also code. It lets you customize vite config if you want to. Don't tell anyone. And you can also
actually document it.
Yeah, and there you could actually do stuff like, since it's code, you can make different paths or different deployments behaviors if you wanted to, using code, environment variables, whatever you wanted, right? So I mean, that's more maybe relevant for bigger enterprises or whatever, but you know, sky's the limit now. It's just code.
Okay, next question. Is there a maintenance period for V2?
Yes. I think that's that we'll see critical updates at least throughout 2023, right? Knut probably knows more.
Yes. If you go to the aforementioned blog post and documentation, you'll find an end of life like statement. And yeah, it's going to be supported with critical fixes until December 7th, 2023. So you have some time, but let it be clear, like new features. And
that's 1 year, that's not today.
Features. Yeah, in 1 year. But the new features will come to only V3. So we will support Studio V2 with kind of like critical stuff, but you should probably upgrade. But we will help you for sure.
Yeah, you're not alone.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything else to say on that. I mean, that's the day.
Just have to pause. We just have to let it sink in, right? Yeah.
Yeah. 1 year, don't forget.
Yeah. It wasn't yesterday. Just make that clear.
Save the day. You have 1 day to upgrade. No.
Yeah, but again, like unless you have like a lot of like custom parts stuff going on and mostly schemas, it should be hopefully a pretty simple upgrade path. The schemas are mostly the same. Do we have another question, Cap?
Yes, there are so many to choose from. Great questions, by the way, everyone asking. We really appreciate it. So, next one. Is there still going to be a need for some sort of code gen to get TypeScript types from schemas?
I'd love to answer this one. So, I mean, what we've done now in v3, making schemas, this is where we have the TypeScript support. You're still a little bit on your own for actually making, you know, typing the way the content lake or the data as it's stored is made. There is still no ready-made way for that. And you could still just do what I've done for years and just hand type that. I know a lot of people really love the CodeGen stuff that was sort of like a little bit of a sideline thing. I don't think we, at the current moment, has a very official answer to what you should do with that solution. Hopefully, we will have an answer soon. But of course, what I will say is that now that you can embed the Sanity Studio, it's a lot less hassle to have your types live in the same place, and you can share it between the studio and your front end, right? So in a lot of cases, that will already go a long ways, I would say.
I'll just continue plugging the blog post because I actually have like an honorable mention of some interesting community open source projects. So Formidable, the agency, have made a project called, I think, GrokD, which kind of gives you some like TypeScript powers in the front end using, it's built on something called SOD, I think. I haven't tried it yet, but I think it looks promising.
Yeah, it's the approach I personally really like, and I could also mention we are doing some internal experiments to what it could look like if we generated types based on the Grok query. But all of this is very experimental at this point. But we are very much invested in delivering on a great TypeScript experience on the querying of data.
We want this too, right?
Yes, we do. We write a lot of Grok queries, if you could imagine. We use it on our own stuff.
And I mean, it's also useful to have CodeGen from the schema types for your custom components as well, because if you want type-safe custom components, you actually want the shape of your values within your components. So yeah, the motivation is definitely there, and I mean, we have only scratched the surface in this.
All right.
Great answer. This one's interesting, and I'm excited to see how you both answer this. Can you add some details about running V2 and V3 in parallel?
This is actually, I can speak to this a little bit because
I've been doing that a lot.
I had the joy of upgrading a lot of plugins and so on. And if you haven't used the plugin before, of course you have to know how it works in V2 before you ship it to V3, because yeah, it's probably a good idea to know that you have feature parity, right? So the cool thing about V3 in that regard is, you know, the data doesn't change. It's exactly the same. So you can start the V2 studio on the same data set as you start the V3 studio, and the collaboration features will even work together. So you can have editors working in V2 on the same document as in V3, and they will still work as before, right? Which is kind of awesome if you think about it. So in that regard, you can even just do like a light migration and just try out the V3. So you could have your dev team, or if you're a bigger team, your editors could, you know, while you're upgrading, you could, you know, have a V3 test studio working on the same data, but you can make sure that you don't have to switch before you're ready, which is actually kind of cool. So you don't have to have like a production freeze to make the change, since the data stays the same. There will be no data migration necessary.
Mm-hmm. And I think like I don't think a lot of systems can do this. Just to kind of like point that out, I think it's kind of somewhat unique in the CMS space, right? Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
It is, and it's pretty wild how well it pairs with systems like this Vercel preview deploy feature, where you can comment on stuff and collaborate on on things and just let it live in a branch until it's ready to go to production. We've used that a lot internally.
Apropos previews, there's a lot of questions about previews. Cody,
yes.
Do you need Studio V3 to kind of like get the new preview stuff, or what's the story there?
You don't. It's a content lake feature. We have built some nice new features in our new starters that will create like a V3 package for later. But that's more to do with how you initiate the preview mode and where you store stuff like preview secrets. But the actual preview mode itself, where it streams drafts, documents, and stuff like that, that works just as well with V2 as V3.
And I think we have some like new tooling on the way to kind of like make it a bit less hard to implement. It's a hard
preview
problem,
kit
though, sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, we have extracted the code we have for this out of Next Sanity and into a general package called preview kit. And right now it has support for anything you do in React 18, and we have planned to expand it to other frameworks like Vue and Svelte and other frameworks that people really enjoy using to give first-class support to all of these. And so that's for next year. So keep an eye on that package if you're building preview experiences.
Are there any other things that they can look forward to next year coming with V3? Like anything that you weren't able to get to, or anything to come that you can talk about?
Ooh.
You can also say
we can talk about.
No comment.
Yeah, I mean, there will be very, very soon. I mean, like very soon. There is just a little bit of an APA drizzle on the top of the portable text editor that will align the internal APIs for annotations and marks to work the same as the rest of the APIs. That just didn't make it for the release, but just we really hope that that's sort of like a specialized flavor of customization that hopefully we will be ready in time for whenever you start migrating in full.
Yeah, and I would like to mention theming. We planned and we talked about this when we launched a dev preview that we were going to ship a theming API. We did not have time to do that, but we will work on that early next year and hopefully release it soon.
I guess technically there's a theme API, but it's very low level. It like requires you to kind of like do a lot of things.
It's like here there be dragons. You can get it done. So you can maybe reverse engineer your themer, but I will say this: it will not be a fun time.
Yeah, we need to make some abstractions to make it like easier. Yeah.
It should be as easy as what's my brand color and what's the dark mode background and why light mode background, and then done. That's how easy it should be, and that's how easy it will be. So that's I look forward to shipping that.
I can also mention that like we have talked about TypeScript a lot, and the Studio V3 is fully typed. I think that's not a lie, and we have worked on extracting those types. So it can be easier to kind of like find them in a reference stock situation. So we're working on making that happen. I think that will be great.
Yeah,
when we get that out the door. Yeah.
If we can just do a drive-by on that, I mean, stuff that's exported now, just you can have access to a lot more stuff from the Sanity package. Just keep in mind to check out the tags on the actual APIs, because now we're trying to be very explicit. Okay, here is everything, but some is marked with internal, some is marked with alpha, beta, or public, just to make very clear that these features are, good to go, use them, and expect them to work as somewhere would. While internal means if you use this thing, that's really on you, and you can't really expect this to work next time you upgrade. So stay away from those. The beta stuff, check it out.
I have a question for you, Cap.
Yeah.
What is the best way for a newbie to learn Studio V3?
So we actually have a YouTube premiere happening tomorrow on a video that I just made that is getting started with Sanity. It's the sanity.io crash course, and it is all in V3. So if you actually don't have any projects any Sanity projects, or you want to just start from scratch and you don't want to go from V2 to V3 and you just want to start right on V3 with your next project, then this video is the video for you. And I will put the link so you can, the premiere happens tomorrow at 9 a.m. Pacific time, 9/8/7. So 6 p.m. In Europe. I know that was kind of late, but I'm going to put that in the chat. Yeah, that is happening tomorrow. Cody, Snorre, do you have any, like, getting into V3, starting your first project that you'd want to add?
I mean, just do create Sanity and start playing. It's so much fun now. And just be aware, the hot reload for custom components, it's so quick that when you're used to V2, you don't even understand that it's already loaded. So you're sitting there waiting and it's already reloaded. So yeah, it's fun. That's what I want to say.
And if you just want to play with the new features really quickly, you could try our new Vercel Next.js starter. Then that will give you live preview and like quick tryout. The amazing new search, by the way, which is my actual favorite feature. I didn't mention it earlier because I love it so much that it's become part of my life. But the new search is just chef's kiss. Oh,
for sure.
It is.
There's probably some questions we missed, but like do join slack.sanity.io, the community, and you can of course ask V3 Studio V3's questions in the Slack community or on GitHub discussions, and we will try to get to them as best as we can. There's a lot of you in the community, so sometimes it takes us a bit to kind of catch up. But yeah, any parting words, Cap? It has been a really fascinating event, even for us who kind of like were in on the plans.
Well, I remember the first time I used V3. I opened up VS Code and I was looking at the config file, and I'm like, oh, they must have missed some code. Like, there's nothing here.
Oh, yeah.
And then I realized, I'm like, oh, that's it. So it's a lot more readable and just like, and it made sense. So I really appreciate like the work that the engineers have put into it, because now it just flows. It makes sense. You look at it and you're like, oh, I see what's happening. And I hope I explain it well enough in that video for you all, because it really is just like, it's just laid out very nicely. So kudos to the engineering team behind it.
Thanks for all of you who stayed and watched all the stuff we had for you today. Yeah, we just love hanging out with the community and so on. And I guess the swag store is still up.
Yeah.
Like get a windbreaker.
But don't buy don't buy the windbreaker.
Those yellow pants. I need it for my
buy the windbreaker.
No. Yeah. And let us know your personality types and so on in the community. All right. That's it, I think.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Cody, Snorre. Thank you for this Q&A, and thank you to the community for asking awesome questions.